My name is Councilmember Raul Morales, and it's just a pleasure to be here with all of you today celebrating this milestone. And so we're really, really excited about that. We have had in the makings for several decades now the opportunity here to transform the old courtyard, which was many iterations later of what this original property was, but now into a future property for so many new residents here, and what we're celebrating today, Heinlenville Park. And so really, really excited about this opportunity here. So this has been now 3 years ago when we first gathered here to break ground on the residential portion, which, as you can all see, has been making tremendous strides and is actually near completion. And so we're excited about that. And this opportunity, again, has been several decades in the making. Japantown has such a rich and tremendous history here, and as we know, one of the last 3 remaining Japantowns in our country. It has strong community pride, and it is with that pride that has made this one of the most unique neighborhoods here in the city of San Jose. It's a place where local art and culture got some of its start, and where it continues to thrive and influence not just Japantown, but our entire city. Each of the festivals and the events that happen here bring thousands of people from all across the Bay Area and beyond to enjoy our community. The addition of this park will contribute to the energy and the vibrancy here in Japantown as a place where we can continue to enjoy it with family, children, and friends. Its name will forever commemorate the historic nature of what this land once was, the opportunities it has brought for so many here in our city, and the potential for what it can be. I will leave that historic nature to Connie Young-Yu, who will be speaking briefly about, I'll introduce you later in just a moment. Connie's ready to go. Ready to go. Who will give you more historical context in regards to the significance of Heinlenville. I did want to share, though, that the actions of John Heinlen himself and the Chinatown that once stood here laid the foundation for so many Asian Americans and Asian immigrants to settle here in the city of San Jose, and paved the way for the creation of the Japantown neighborhood that we love and we celebrate today. So thank you to John and his legacy that he's created. Especially during a time when xenophobia was running rampant, Heinlen was way ahead of his time with his acts of compassion to protect Chinese Americans here in the city of San Jose. He understood the importance of this community and celebrating, more importantly, differences amongst all of us and the value that adds here to our community. And last but not least, I want to be able to thank all of the partners, which there's a lot, that helped to make this happen. This was truly a community effort, again, spanning decades, and it was brought together through our city, our community, and the development community here. And so I want to be able to list off, and please forgive me, the list is a bit long, but we want to make sure we can thank everybody here. First off, our partners here in development, Swenson, Shea Properties here, thank you so much, and the progress is looking tremendous. SB Creates, thank you so much. Connie as well, thank you all the work that you put in from the city, our city's Office of Economic Development, our Public Works Department, our Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Services, and our Office of Cultural Affairs. So many individuals within the city that helped to be a tremendous partner as well. And we can save the claps. There's quite a bit. We'll clap at the end for everybody. I want to thank as well, particularly the board members, both past and present of the Japantown Community Congress, who have been with this project since the beginning, sat through hundreds and hundreds of meetings, and truly deserve to be recognized. We have Steve Fujita, Sophie Horishi Forrester, Helen Hayashi, Warren Hayashi, Roy and PJ Hirabayashi, Agi Itamoto, Reiko Iwanaga, Chin Katsuro, Kenzo Kimura, Leon Kimura, Denise Kawahara, Richard Kogura, Neil Kozuma, Ronald Lum, Leslie Masunaga, Doug McClure, Wes Mukoyama, Taemin Norimoto, Stuart Nakashima, John Risto, Kathy Sakamoto, Gail Soeki, Roy Takeuchi, Victoria Taketa, Joe Yasutake, and the late Jerry Hiura and Jimmy Yamaichi. A big round of applause. And I know we have a number present as well, and I want to thank a couple more people. We have Carol and Tomiko and the entire Rast family are here. Thank you so much. Connie Young-Yu, who you'll hear from. Thank you so much, Connie. Yo Shuchida, Ken Matsumoto, and Pastor Bates again from the Prayer Garden Church here, as well as our Wesley United Methodist Church and the San Jose Betsuan Church. Thank you so much to the partners that you have been here in the community, as well as the current members, all the current members of the JCC and the Japantown Business Association, as well as the Japantown Neighborhood Association. Again, truly a group and shared effort here. We have the Chinese Historical and Cultural Project as well, which again you'll hear briefly. Thank you so much. And lastly, but not least, our late and honorable Norm Mineta here. Thank you. And please forgive me if I may have left anybody out. We truly thank you all for your investment, your time, your energy. This truly took a village to build up not only this community, this park here, and so thank you all. And I know we've all waited long, not only for this day, but for the final product, which we are eagerly awaiting. And we will now move on to our next speakers, but I do want to recognize, I believe we have a representative from Assemblymember Oshikawa's office here, Tuan Nguyen. If you're here, raise your hand, wave. Oh, thank you, Tuan. Thank you so much for being here. And did you have a commendation you wanted to present? We'll let you present that after our speakers, so we'll invite you back up. Thank you. Okay, now I'd like to invite up Connie Young-Yu, author of Chinatown, San Jose, USA, published by History San Jose, a descendant of the Market Street Chinatown in Heinlenville. Connie, thank you so much.
Thank you. Forgive my eagerness here. I so appreciate council members Morales' very hopeful and inspiring message for the present and the future as I'm about to talk about the past. So this is a historic moment, a long time coming, and it's important firstly because as my father, John C. Young, was born right over there on Cleveland Avenue, right in the middle of this development here at his parents' general store. And he would talk about the beautiful temple, which is actually at the corner of this street, and a beautiful neighborhood, a safe and happy childhood with colorful festivals, the temple that was the heart of the community, and every store representing a family and a clan, and having the children having the run of the streets. This idyllic town ended during the Depression when the Chinese population was decimated by the exclusion laws and the merchants couldn't pay the rent, and Heinlen Company went bankrupt. The buildings were torn down by 1932, and the city took over the property, and my dad and my grandparents moved across the street right over there. They were at 655 North 1st Street and had Japanese and Filipino neighbors. It was very thriving at that time, the beginning of the Asian American community in San Jose. In passing years, to Chinatown residents, the property was known as the courtyard, and soon no longer anybody was around to remember that it was once a Chinatown called Heinlenville. The story begins with the Market Street fire. My grandfather, Young, was a teenager in this Chinatown, one of the largest in California at the time. And years later, he would tell his family there was a fire that was deliberately set to drive us out. This was not an isolated incident. The Chinese lived in terror in the West in the 1880s after the passage of the exclusion law. Tacoma, Seattle, Eureka, all these places had horrific driving out of the Chinese. In San Jose, the city already condemned the Chinatown because it needed the site to build a new city hall. But the eviction plan was not necessarily to be implemented because on May 4th, 1887, the arson fire happened, and San Jose, city of San Jose, rejoiced. Within 10 days of the fire, 11 Chinese merchants met with John Heinlen to make plans for a new Chinatown on his land. He was born in Württemberg, Germany. He came with his family as a child to Ohio. They were farmers, but he came to California in the 1850s and was a successful farmer and businessman. There was mutual trust early on between the Chinese and John Heinlen. He had leased farmland to them in his property in Fresno and Kings County. He employed Chinese in his ranch in Coyote in San Jose. So a contract was made between them, between the merchants of the former Chinatown, Mark Street Chinatown, and John Heinlen. Each merchant put down $300 as a deposit. This was a dangerous time to support the Chinese and have any business dealings with them. It was considered downright unpatriotic. The labor movement was in power, and there's a national policy, the Chinese exclusion law, that not only curtailed immigration, but prohibited Chinese from naturalization to citizenship. This is the beginning of Asians being perceived as perpetual aliens. John Heinlen and his wife, Jane, were members of the First Methodist Episcopal Church that was burned down in 1869 because the minister, Reverend Thomas Dunn, preached Bible classes to Chinese. He received death threats because he taught the Chinese. And after the church was burned down, he was told he better leave town or he'd be faced with violence. So he did not. He stood his ground. People like John Heinlen and other parishioners stayed with him, and they rebuilt the church. But John Heinlen knew that when he did this contract with the Chinese, he would face consequences. He was already vilified in the press. They called him terrible names, like he was going to build a hellhole. It was called Heinlen's Hellhole, and they called him Heinlen. But he had made an agreement for his best piece of property in San Jose for lease to the Chinese. There was 5.5 acres of pasture land here, not far from a very fine residential district. The city was outraged and responded. Heinlen was denied permits to build. On June 8th, just a month after the fire, a huge anti-Chinese rally took place a few blocks from here to protest the building of a new Chinatown. The newspapers reported that there were 2,000 people, and among them some ladies. That meant that it was a legitimate rally. It was led by Mayor Breyfogle and city councilmen, and the citizens that night organized the San Jose Home Protective Organization. They were going to be very legitimate. The next morning, the head of this association and other officials called on John Heinlen, trying to persuade him to stop this building of the Chinatown in their beautiful neighborhood, not in our neighborhood. Break his contract with the Chinese? No way, said John Heinlen. So a battle began. The city had a court injunction to stop him from building. Heinlen's son, Goethe Heinlen, a lawyer from San Francisco, came to fight with his father, and luckily he won. John Heinlen enlisted his friend, the esteemed architect Theodor Lenzen, born in Germany, also to design the new Chinatown to the satisfaction of the Chinese. There'd be a wide avenue, 2 streets wide and 4 blocks long. There'd be restaurants, a temple, stores that would be homes to the Chinese families. So this was a German-Chinese alliance in building this new Chinatown. During the building, they had an 8-foot-high fence to protect against vandals and arsonists. The fence stayed up for 44 years. Heinlen leased land to the Japanese also, adjacent to Chinatown, and it's at the very edge of this, it's actually part of this complex here. and Japantown was born. Dr. Tokyo Ichikawa, a pioneer of this town, said, "When the name Heinlen was spoken, it was always with respect." In 1903, John Heinlen died. His children took over. Daughter Anna was the president. Her sister Mary, was vice president. Son Marion Albert, who was an engineer, was secretary treasurer. My dad said John Heinlen loved the Chinese, and so his children did also. He and his friends had good memories of the young Heinlens. Every Chinese New Year they came by with a horse and buggy and delivered a cake to every store in the town. They had no descendants. They never married. I believe the Heinlens were ostracized because of their friendship and their loyalty to the Chinese. You can learn about the history of Heinlenville at History Park at CHCP's. They founded the Chinese American Museum, which is a replica temple. It's in the park, and you will see exhibits about the Chinatowns in San Jose, some archaeology, and the story of the life of the town called Heinlenville. Also, the original temple altar is there. CHCB led a campaign for this name of the park as Heinlenville, because the name honors Heinlen, but also the community. The site stands for something, a community that rose out of the ashes, built by a man of integrity and courage, and the brave people who would not be driven out. San Jose should be so proud of this history. This is a commemoration and a celebration, a legacy that we all should be so very proud of. Thank you.
A wealth of knowledge and history. Thank you so much, Connie. My office heard continually, and in fact, every now and then still continue to hear, how could you name a park in Japantown after a white man? They need to listen to that story. And I will say I'm proud that the city of San Jose, thank you to you and to our Chinese American community, our Japanese American community. John Heinlen is going to live forever here through this park here. Thank you. And next up, we have one of the original founding members of the Japantown Community Congress to come and speak, Warren Hayashi.
The beginning of the Japantown Community Congress has an interesting story. It was not something that just happened overnight, but there is the history to go with it. And going back, when all of this took place, first of all, we need to recognize the city of San Jose, and in particular the redevelopment agency at that time, that was very instrumental in a lot of the improvements that took place here in Japantown. At that particular moment, or at that period of time, there were a lot of people that were involved, and the city was very forward in their thinking in that when this property became available, they wanted the entire community here in Japantown, not only the business people, the service organizations, and the people that lived in the community, to help form plans on what this property should look like and what should it do for the future. And so there were a number of meetings. Unfortunately, some of those meetings went a long time, but we eventually came to what we see now. This is going to be a beautiful facility for everyone to recognize. The entire project, as already mentioned, took over 2 decades of community work and tons of meetings. I'm telling you, there was just meetings after meetings, and we've learned through the city and also through the redevelopment agency some of the things that we needed to understand to make this project come to fruition. There's a man at that particular time who was serving in the California State Senate. His name was John Vasconcellos. John was very forward in his thinking. He recognized that all through these years, the Japanese community throughout the state of California did so much for the growth of the state, and he wanted to recognize them. But at the time that he authored the bill SB 307 back in was around 2001. This was post-war, so all of the Japanese communities that used to exist throughout California, which were known as Nihon Machis, there were roughly 40 of these communities throughout the entire state. And post-war, after World War II, really only 3 was still in existence. And so it was through his legislation that, with the help of Elaine Alquist, one of the co-authors of the bill, they were able to get the law in place, and each city would receive some money. There was about $1 million that were set aside for the 3 communities to preserve their community, and San Jose was one of the 3. The other 2, of course, was Los Angeles and San Francisco. Those are the 3 remaining Japantowns in the United States. Once each city, once the bill was actually passed in the state senate and the information was disseminated, each community was instructed to form their own organization and develop plans as to how they would improve their neighborhood. And in our case, when this took place, of course, we had a series of meetings where, with the help of the city and redevelopment agency, invited everybody in the neighborhood. Anybody that lived in this neighborhood at the time, of course, were invited to be part of the discussion. And it was at this point an ad hoc committee was established, and this was done back in around 2001. And once the ad hoc committee was formed, then of course you need to have a leader. And our original leader is here with us today, Joe Yasutake. Joe, just lift your hand up. Joe was our first president, and so once the ad hoc committee got going, then we had a lot of work to do. There was so many technical things that we had to overcome, but by the year 2003, the ad hoc committee had enough material information together that we were able to take the information and formally establish the Japantown Community Congress of San Jose. And it was in 2003 that this organization was legally formed as a non-profit organization here in San Jose. The project, as I said earlier, took several decades. I mean, it was a long time, and many of those people that survived those 20 plus years are here with us today, and it's through their perseverance and ingenuity to make all of this happen for what we see today. There was this project here was a long time coming. There was a lot of conversation. Believe me, there was one, and there was one of the options was being part of the project, and as it turns out, the San Jose Taiko is going to have a place here so that they will be recognized as part of the city in this park. The present people that are involved, those of us that were in the beginning involved with the JCC are all retired, so to speak, and we have a lot of young people now, and certainly they have their work cut out, but I think the San Jose Japantown is in good hands, and with the leadership that we have here today, we're going to see a beautiful park here. This it's already been mentioned, but I think the name of the park, I think is very appropriate. The Heinlenville Park, and I think that's going to be a place that people will come and visit, and it'll be a destination in the future. So it'll be something that we will all look forward to. So again, thank you to all of the people that were involved in the process from day one all the way through our current time. It's a job that's going to continue forever. I mean, it's not going to be done. It'll always have something to be that will become part of the history of this facility. So again, thank you, and
Thank you very much, Warren. We appreciate all of your support, and from the Japantown Community Congress as well. Sorry, I was holding it low. And speaking of San Jose Taiko, I now have the pleasure of welcoming up Roy Hirabayashi, one of the co-founders of San Jose Taiko. Roy?
Thank you very much, Councilmember Morales, and for all your work and efforts to bring this to where we are today, to be able to have this groundbreaking for this park. As was following speakers like, well, Connie and more, it's great to hear the stories, but also means that they pretty much said what I was going to say. So I'll make mine very short, because they did a great job of telling you the history and importance of why we're even here today. But I do want to acknowledge the fact that this is a park that's going to be built here within our community here in Japantown. And what's really important to understand and to remember is that this park hopefully will remind you of the history that has happened here over 100 years ago, but more importantly, what's going to happen in the future and what we can do to make that happen for us all, for our community, for the city of San Jose. And so this is just the beginning of that piece that's going to be going on forward from here. And for that to really happen, it's not just remembering what happened in the past, but it's all of us coming together to really work together to really bring that efforts to highlight and to help support all the different communities within our city. And especially, naturally, I love Japantown and Chinatown here. That's where I live and I want to really support. This is where we really want to have that support for happening for us. We've been working on this a long time, as Connie and Warren has mentioned, to make this happen here. And as was also mentioned, the Home for San Jose Taiko has been a dream of mine for as long as this project has been been an effort to have something for San Jose Taiko permanently here in Japantown. And we are looking forward to having that come to fruition very soon. So thank you to folks like from the council, from city, but also from people like Connie Martinez and SV Creates, and also naturally the developer Shea Properties, for really making that happen for us right now. I do want to again remind you all that as we move forward here, we need to honor this park for our neighborhood, and we need to respect it. We need to take care of it. We need to make sure everyone enjoys it, and to activate it with different things, whether it's from the different temples here or churches here, but also the different community events, or just the families that would maybe coming into this area. So I hope all of you will really encourage that, and in the future tell your children what this is all about. If you could remember another 50 years from now what happened here today and why this is even here. So thank you very much. Thank you to the city. Really appreciate all your work.
Thank you very much, Roy. I know I look forward to bringing my children here and sharing the beautiful history here with this park for many, many years to come. The Assistant Director of our Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Services, Neil Ruffino.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm super happy to be here. I'm honored to be part of this crowd here, not only as a staff person for the city and the Park and Rec Department, but as a neighbor resident, live in the north side, and we are here almost every weekend walking into Japantown. So just super happy to have this here. As you know, parks makes the city better, right? Our department is dedicated to equity and to making sure that our spaces and places are reflective of the people who are in San Jose. We want to make sure that our parks are available for all ages, all cultures, and abilities. So with the help of the community input, Heinlenville Park was developed to enhance the public life of Japantown and the city. The park itself is going to feature public art, landscape seating areas, a children's playground, and cherry blossoms. The plaza itself has been designed to support a range of activities, programs, and experiences like the farmers market, which just started a few weeks ago, so thank you for that. Placemaking events, and ideally, if we could have this open before Oban next year, that would be amazing. So the park itself and the space, as we've heard, has been a place of refuge for many of our Asian community, Chinese Americans, Filipino Americans, and Japanese Americans. And to be reflective of the community and for this park to take it into the future, I think is what all of this is about. The vision for Park and Rec is for healthy communities that inspire belonging. And we want this park to reflect that. We're proud to build a park that honors the history of the neighborhood and celebrates the identity of the community of those who've lived here in the past and will live here in the future. And with that, I'd like to put some special thanks to Mayor Licauda, of course, Councilmember Raul Perales, developer Shea Properties, and Sean McGarren, the Vice President, who's here. Where's Sean? There in the back. And I'd also like to make sure we thank our city staff that have put their time and effort into this. Nicole Burnham, our Deputy Director of our Capital Improvement Program. Rebecca Ross, our planner. Heidi Pacheco, who is also our Capital Projects Parks Manager for this effort. I want to thank Office of Cultural Affairs. Michael Ogilvy from Public Art is here, as well as Lynn Rogers from the Senior Arts Program Coordinator from Office of Economic Development. And with that, I just want to thank everyone. I'm super excited to bring another park in San Jose. As Roy mentioned earlier, come out, support our parks. Let's keep those things pristine and clean and make everything happy for everybody. Thanks, Raul.
Thank you very much, Neil. And our final speaker, bringing the perspective from our Public Works Department, our Principal Architect, Tala Fatolazadeh.
Good afternoon, San Jose. My name is Tala Fatolazadeh. I'm the Principal Landscape Architect for the city's Public Works Department. I am very excited to be here. Thank you everyone for coming as we celebrate and gear up for construction start on a very nice sunny day, I might add. This has been a long time coming, as everyone has mentioned before me, and Public Works tends to come in right when the fun begins, so we are really leading the design and construction. So I do want to take a minute to just acknowledge the design team. Chris Master de Casa, Stacy Palomar, who's here today, somewhere, hiding maybe, and Ron Chung, our landscape architecture and project management team with the Public Works Department, as well as Justin Hall, who's also here hiding somewhere. Yep, I see you. Who will be our day-to-day project inspector on site during construction. Jason Victor and his team of landscape architects with Kay Victor, standing somewhere in the back. Jason's also a colleague and fellow Cal Poly alumni like myself, so I can say with no bias whatsoever that he comes from the best landscape architecture program in the country. Go Mustangs! And then, of course, our partners in PRNS, Heidi Pacheco, as mentioned before, Rebecca Ross, Zach Mendez. I know Tori O'Reilly's here as well, and our park maintenance team. They play an integral role in making projects like this happen, but then also protecting them for years to come. Along with Keith Gaxiola and Jason Yan in our Development Services Department as well. We've had a great partnership with the developer, Sean. I know we've called them out before with Shea Properties. These partnerships with our development community often give us an opportunity to explore some unique design features. And given the historical context of this park, Shea and Kay Victor really got creative with the design. This park will feature some extensive stonework both in intricate paving patterns, including the use of cobblestone, granite, concrete, brick, pretty much anything, any material, you name it, it's in the park. Along with some really unique park amenities such as granite benches, stone boulders, natural cut stone seawalls, really creative use of material going in this park. There will be a historical memory walk featuring granite custom medallions and informational signage that will speak to the history of this park as well. We'll also have a passive garden space, a children's play area. I know we talked earlier about some of the programming that's going to be coming in. Very excited about that as well. And probably most exciting, at least in my opinion, is a public art feature. So I'd like to give another shout out to our public arts program within the city of San Jose. Michael and Lynn Rogers, who is the project lead, and Chris Mastrodicasa, again, who is part of the selection team to find our artist. Our public arts programs is one of my favorite programs. It's really something unique to our city and allows us to engage with local artists and bring some flavor to our public spaces. Roger Stoller, our artist selected for this project, is a nationally recognized sculptor, but he was born and raised in California, and his studio is here in San Jose. The sculpture is called Sheltering Wing, and it's representative of the protection that Heinlen brought to the Chinese community. It's an 18-foot tall metal sculpture in the form of a helix, comprised of detailed open-cut metal lace made out of stainless steel. Really cool, something that would really shine bright on a day like today. It is rich with imagery of specifically iconic symbols from both Chinese and Japanese cultural traditions, intended to achieve a blend of images that best suggests a cohesive story. The artwork is intended as a timeless tribute to the elements of positivity in Chinese and Japanese culture. Something I think we always need, right? A little positivity. So thank you. We're all very excited to see that artwork come to life. As I mentioned before, this park has been a long time coming. I'll just mention briefly in Public Works, a lot of our projects have been impacted by the pandemic, by the Ukrainian war, material shortages, labor shortages, you name it, we've been experiencing it. A lot of unknowns have been going into our park. So I do want to take a moment to show my appreciation again to Shea Properties and Swenson Builders, who's making a big old construction mess out here, who have been steadfast, in all seriousness, they've been steadfast in their commitment to deliver this park as it was designed and initially envisioned, despite what's going on in the world. So thank you to them. They've been a great partner, and I know we're all very, very anxious to break ground. So thank you, Shay. Thank you to the city, and a big, big, big thank you to our community, our Heinlenville community here today. Hopefully we'll all be back here in a few short months to have a grand opening ceremony. So thanks.
Hello everyone, my name is John Heinlen. I am a field representative of Assembly Member Oshkara, representing this district. So I am honored to be here today, and I would like to say thank you to the hard work of the Japantown community, especially Japantown Community Conference, Office of Councilman Raul Perez, and San Jose City Parks Recreation and Neighborhood Service. Thank you everyone, and I would like to present an assembly certificate of recognition.
Here we go, right here. Let's take one step forward. There we go. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Well, now is the time. So I'd like to invite up all of our speakers here to come on up and join us. And Sean as well, our development partners, come on up and grab a shovel.
Peter, you want to count? 1. We're gonna turn over the sand. Don't throw it. Turn over. 1, 2, 3. Go for it.